Our nation's Army continues to provide service to the nation and strength for the future. The past year has witnessed a successful drawdown and transition in Iraq, continued focus on success in Afghanistan, and the nation's call for its total Army force to support the domestic needs of our country. At home, the National Guard continues its service to the nation, fighting fires in the West, assisting fellow citizens in catastrophic floods, and rebuilding communities in the aftermath of hurricanes. The total Army stands ready to answer the call, providing the decisive action needed for any challenge facing the nation. For the past 11 years of war, the men and women of our total Army and their families have sacrificed much, proving steadfast and loyal to our nation. Today, we see the sudden changes in the leadership of governments throughout the world, which are reshaping the political landscape. Weakened leaders combined with strongly held beliefs generate conditions for sweeping action in rudderless, often violent movements. Rapid communication fuels conditions for massive social movements, tension, and instability. Our Army provides the strength of the nation for the joint force. Through deployment of soldiers on the ground who possess distinctive skills and capabilities no other organization can provide. Our Army creates and maintains conditions that prevent would-be challenges to our national interests, shape actions worldwide by offering America's leaders scalable and tailorable options for a wide range of mission sets, and delivers a force that is the decisive instrument of power that will win in any environment. Moving forward, the needs of the nation will be met with a ready and resilient force, with the soldier and the squad as a centerpiece of our modernization strategy. This force will be led by inspired, resourceful, and experienced leaders. These leaders will be developed to push the bounds of knowledge and operate in uncertain environments. The high-quality, all-volunteer force will be sustained well into the future. But for those soldiers and families that decide to transition back to civilian life, they will take with them their sense of discipline, values, and honor back to their communities. We are America's sons and daughters, bonded by trust. Trust between soldiers, trust between soldiers and leaders, trust between our soldiers' families and the Army, and trust between the Army and the nation. That is the cornerstone of what we do. An American professional soldier is an expert, a volunteer certified in the profession of arms, and a soldier for life. We are America's Army. The strength of the nation is our Army. The strength of the Army is our soldiers. The strength of our soldiers is our families. This is what makes us Army strong.
Welcome to the Dwight David Eisenhower Luncheon. The theme of this year's luncheon, America's Army, Service to Nation, Strength for the Future, is accompanied by the association tagline, a professional development forum. There is no other annual meeting or show like this in the world, and no other place where you can learn from and enjoy over 600 exhibits from industry and 17 military and government exhibits, along with the many professional developments and family-oriented presentations which talk about the contemporary Army and the future. All of that within 3 days, and if it wasn't enough for you, you could go out and run 10 miles on Sunday morning to get ready for it. Now, as has been our custom for a number of years at this luncheon, we want to honor a number of people who are here. Obviously, the most senior leadership of the Army who are present at the head table. How about a nice hand for the gents up here? I also would like to recognize any members from any other service of the United States. That is the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard. Anybody who served in any of those services, please stand and to be recognized. Thanks to each of you for your service, and thanks for being with us today. I'd like to recognize one of our special guests. I actually recognized him on Monday at the opening ceremony, but many of you were not with us. Our own Lieutenant General retired Bob Foley, who earned the Medal of Honor through his valorous actions in Vietnam in 1966. And General Foley is standing right here. Bob, we're proud of you. There is a great soldier. He's still serving, running an Army emergency relief today. We appreciate what you do, what you did and what you do, and what you represent. Would all active Command Sergeants Major and Sergeants Major please stand? By the way, by active, I meant active guard and reserve. I presume everybody, I didn't mean to just say active. I mean, it's active guard and reserve, those wearing the uniform. So I hope every one of you did. Also welcome to all those individuals who have been selected as outstanding non-commissioned officers and outstanding soldiers at their home stations. I'd like you to stand to be recognized. Outstanding NCOs and soldiers, please stand. Today we're also honored to have with us a very large, actually, not relative, it is a large number of general officers representing other countries, our allies and friends, and representing the armies, in most cases, the armies of those nations. So would all general officers or flag officers from other nations please stand to be recognized. Years ago, the Association of the United States Army joined with the National Guard Association and the Reserve Officers Association in a project to recognize readiness achievements by National Guard units and Army Reserve units. When the U.S. Army Forces Command was established in 1973, it was charged with the readiness of all Army units in the United States. The first commander of Forces Command was General Walter T. Kirwan, Jr. He dedicated himself to the task of preparing not only the active elements, but also the Guard and Reserve for operations around the world. Now, the selection process to select from this big number, it's a relatively large number, of Guard and Reserve units was difficult. The National Guard Chief, the Chief of the National Guard Bureau, selects the Army National Guard Unit, and the Commanding General Army Forces Command selects the Army Reserve. It's a federal force, and that's the distinction, federal and state in this case. And as an indication of the essential role filled by all Guardsmen and Reservists, it is especially significant that the Chief of Staff of the United States Army makes the presentation with the Sergeant Major of the Army, representing the fact that at some point, both the federal force and the state forces come together as the Army in a total Army sense. Would General Odiono and Sergeant Major of the Army Chandler, would you please position yourself here on the stage in front of the podium so we can do these two presentations? Now, the permanent award plaques, which will come out, include the inscription, "These citizen soldiers have been chosen as the nation's best," unquote. Given the broad competition, every member of the winning unit can take justifiable pride in his or her contribution to Army readiness.
Would Lieutenant Colonel Ronald Couples and Command Sergeant Major Gregory Whitberg please join the group on stage? The Walter T. Kerwin Jr. Readiness Award for the Outstanding Army National Guard Unit for training year 2011 is the 1st Battalion, 182nd Infantry Regiment. Accepting the award is Unit Commander Lieutenant Colonel Ronald Couples and Command Sergeant Major Gregory Whitberg from Melrose, Massachusetts. The 1st Battalion, 182nd Infantry Regiment of Massachusetts has shown itself to be one of the most adaptable and nimble National Guard units, rapidly adjusting to shifting demands upon the unit and excelling at retraining and reorganizing their unit for an early and successful deployment to Afghanistan. In 2008, the unit, at that time a cavalry squadron, was tasked with transitioning to an infantry battalion 1 year earlier than scheduled. In order to complete the transition, the 182nd Infantry Regiment needed to completely reorganize and retrain the unit, while also nearly doubling the numbers of soldiers. The unit's regimental leaders and administrative staff spearheaded recruitment and retention efforts, while members of the unit trained at an increased tempo to qualify as squad leaders and team leaders, to change their duty military occupation specialties, and to learn or refresh the skills needed for soldiers in an infantry regiment. Due to its superior readiness status, the 182nd was sourced to deploy to Afghanistan in 2011, even as their transition to infantry was ongoing. Deploying to Afghanistan from March 2011 to March 2012, the 182nd conducted the security force mission for 11 provincial reconstruction teams, defended Kabul while based in 2 installations there, and conducted Afghan police, advise, and assist missions in the capital city. The quick progress and exceptional results of the unit's transition from cavalry and its successful deployment to Afghanistan illustrate the quality of the unit's leadership, the drive of its individual soldiers, and its cohesion as a fighting force. Would Lieutenant Colonel Michael Sharp join the group on stage? The Walter T. Kerwin Jr. Readiness Award for the Army's Most Outstanding Reserve Unit is presented to the 373rd Military Intelligence Battalion. Accepting the award is Lieutenant Colonel Michael Sharp from Tumwater, Washington. The 373rd Military Intelligence Battalion, Task Force Griffin, has proven itself an adept unit at supporting combat operations and providing actionable intelligence during Operation New Dawn and Operation Enduring Freedom. The 3 companies of the 373rd Military Intelligence Battalion have each contributed greatly to the overall success of the battalion's mission. Alpha Company, Team Squirrel, operated throughout Iraq, focused on a variety of intelligence collection and processing. Bravo Company, operating throughout the USD North area of operations, consistently reported intelligence at a higher rate than other teams in their area of operations, providing important leads and helping support operations resulting in the detention of suspected insurgents, the capture of a high-value individual, and the detection of numerous weapons and IED caches. Charlie Company, operating throughout the USD Central and South area of operations, produced more than 150 target packets, resulting in Iraqi Army strike elements executing more than 60 warrants. The tremendous contributions of the 373rd Military Intelligence Battalion Task Force Griffin in Iraq were instrumental in hindering insurgent activities, providing force protection, and serving as a combat multiplier for U.S. and Iraqi Army commanders on the ground. As troop numbers on the ground began to recede, the battalion was a great asset in helping maintain security leading up to the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Iraq.
Thanks, Chief, and you to the Sergeant Major. Let me just add our congratulations to the commanders and soldiers of each of the two units, and congratulations to members of the National Guard Association and the Reserve Officers Association, who made all of this possible, along with the Association of the U.S. Army. Now we'll continue with the process, and Sergeant Major Dudley will continue. Sergeant Dudley.
The Stephen Ailes Award is presented annually by the Department of the Army to the Outstanding Drill Sergeant of the United States Army. This year, outstanding drill sergeants representing United States Army training centers appeared before a headquarters U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Command Selection Board to compete for this coveted award. The 2012 Army Drill Sergeant of the Year is Staff Sergeant Jeffrey B. Heilman. The Ralph E. Haynes Jr. Award is given annually by the Department of the Army to the United States Army Reserve Drill Sergeant of the Year. Outstanding drill sergeants representing United States Army Reserve training divisions and separate brigades appeared before a headquarters U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Command Selection Board to compete for this coveted award. The 2012 Reserve Drill Sergeant of the Year is Staff Sergeant Jared Moss. The General Maxwell Thurman Recruiting Excellence Award is given each year to the Active Duty, National Guard, and Reserve Recruiters of the Year. During General Thurman's tenure as commander of the U.S. Army Recruiting Command, he significantly improved the quality of Army enlistees and helped create the professional Army of today. And he played a key role in fostering the public's positive perceptions of America's Army and its great soldiers. His influence left a mark on Army recruiting and set high standards for today's Army recruiters. The non-commissioned officers selected as the top Army recruiters for 2012. The U.S. Army Recruiter of the Year is Sergeant First Class Tilton Washington. Sergeant First Class Washington is presently deployed in Afghanistan and is unable to join us today. Accepting the award is Command Sergeant Major Todd Moore, the U.S. Army Recruiting Command Command Sergeant Major. The U.S. Army National Guard Recruiting and Retention NCO of the Year is Sergeant First Class Craig Wester. The U.S. Army Reserve Recruiter of the Year is Sergeant First Class Stephen Sibley. The Finis D. McCleary Award is presented each year to the non-commissioned officer selected as the very best Advanced Individual Training Platoon Sergeant of the Year. The award is named in honor of Finis D. McCleary, who received the Medal of Honor while serving as a U.S. Army platoon sergeant in the Vietnam War. McCleary's extraordinary heroism and remarkable leadership qualities are that which the Advanced Individual Training Platoon Sergeant proudly emulates. Leading from the front, inspiring the highest standards of military service, and going above and beyond the call of duty. The non-commissioned officer selected as the 2012 AIT Platoon Sergeant of the Year is Sergeant First Class Delroy Barnett. With the winners of the 2012 Best Warrior Competition, please join the Sergeant Major of the Army and the Chief of Staff on the stage. The non-commissioned officer selected as the NCO of the Year is Staff Sergeant Matthew Senna, and the soldier selected as the Soldier of the Year is Specialist Saral Shrestha.
Today we're honored to have with us the 38th Chief of Staff of the United States Army. It gives me great pride and an enormous sense of pleasure to present to you General Raymond Odiono, Chief of Staff of the United States Army.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see so many of you here. What a great turnout. It's always incredible to stand here and look out and see all the great supporters of our Army from other services, other nations, industry. It's just really wonderful. And then all our other supporters throughout the country, most of them associated with the Associated United States Army. It's really great to see you here. Thank you, General Sullivan, as always. You do such a great job. Thank you and your team for this conference and for the 62 years that the Association of the United States Army has supported the entire Army family. To our distinguished guests and Army senior leaders sitting on the dais, thank you for joining us here today. Secretary McHugh, it's especially great to have you here, sir. For the past 3 years, you've done such a great job of leading our Army. And you've led us through many milestones. I thank you for your commitment to our soldiers, your commitment to our families, and the commitment that you have to ensure we have a better Army. And it's a pleasure for me to have the opportunity to work with you every day, sir. So thank you so much for everything that you do. former Secretaries of the Army, the Honorable Martin Hoffman, Honorable Louis Caldera, and Honorable Les Brownlee. It's great to have all of you here today as well, continuing to support this great Army. Former Chiefs of Staff of the Army, General Retired Dennis Reimer, General Retired Carl Vuono, it's great to have you here. It's always great to have your support. I also want to recognize my Vice, General Lloyd Austin, great teammate, partner, and we've been together for several iterations here throughout our career, and it's great to have somebody like him by your side every single day. Sergeant Major Chandler, thank you for what you do to lead the enlisted force and help me and advise me on everything that is necessary as we continue to move forward. Thank you for your leadership. Former Sergeant Major of the Army Robert Hall, Sergeant Major of the Army Jack Tilley, Sergeant Major of the Army Ken Preston, I want to thank you all for being here, what you've done for our Army and what you continue to do for our Army today. I'd also like to recognize Command Sergeant Major Retired William Gainey, the first Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It's great to have you as well. General Foley, it's always a pleasure to see you, sir. Thank you for everything that you continue to do to support our soldiers and families and the example that you set for all great warriors out there. I'd like to take a moment, go off a little bit here, to recognize the AUSA Vice President of Education and the Executive Director of the Institute of Land Warfare, Lieutenant General Retired Ted Stroop. As this will be his last official AUSA function, I want to thank you, Ted, for your years of service, not only to the Army, but what you've continued to do after the Army and all you've done with AUSA. I wish you and Harriet the best in your second or third or whatever retirement this might be for you, but I wish you nothing but the best because you've dedicated so much to our soldiers. General Stroop, you please stand, be recognized. Thank you so much. It's my distinct honor to be here today. From where I stand, I have a great vantage point to see the many people here who have done so much for America's Army. Soldiers from yesterday and today who have served honorably, and those who have led the very best warfighters in the world. Our supporters from Capitol Hill, members of Congress and the professional staff, our allies and multinational partners, and our partners in corporate America. Thank you all for your great support that each of you has provided to our Army and to our soldiers and families. I thank you very much. And I'd be remiss if I did not finally thank my wife, Linda, who's been by my side for over 36 years. In my opinion, she represents the incredible contributions, dedication, and resilience of all of our Army spouses. And none of us could do what we do without the undying support and complete dedication of our spouses as we go through this. So thank you very much. Having just passed my one-year mark as the Chief of Staff, I'd like to discuss where we are as an Army, briefly reflect on the strategic environment, and close by describing the vision for the Army of the future. Today we have many challenges ahead of us, but first and foremost in my mind, as we sit here this afternoon, is that we have over 80,000 soldiers deployed, with almost 60,000 in Afghanistan and thousands of others deployed to places like Kuwait, Kosovo, the Sinai, and the Horn of Africa. There are also 92,000 soldiers forward stationed in nearly 160 nations around the globe. Entering into our 12th consecutive year of war, approximately 1.5 million soldiers have served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and a large majority of their leaders have served multiple times. These young men and women have earned nearly 16,000 medals of valor, to include 6 medals of honor, 26 Distinguished Service Crosses, and 660 Silver Stars. And these numbers continue to grow. The soldiers who have earned these medals for bravery, courage, and selfless service have told me with striking humility that they were just doing their job. They did what any soldier would have done, that the medal they receive represents and honors those who have served beside them. That's what our Army is all about. That's why I love to serve in this great Army of ours. In these wars, we have built adaptive and agile formations and leaders that have adjusted tactics and missions while in contact with the enemy into very different operating environments. And as was said earlier, we successfully concluded combat operations in Iraq and turned over responsibility to Iraqi security forces, just a few years after prognosticators and pundits widely asserted all was lost in Iraq. The retrograde of personnel and equipment out of Iraq upon the completion of Operation New Dawn was an enormously complex endeavor led by General Lloyd Austin. It was made successful by dedicated soldiers, skilled leaders, and a professional drive towards mission accomplishment. And today, Afghanistan remains our top priority. We continue to ensure that the nearly 60,000 soldiers deployed there are fully trained, equipped, and ready. I was in Afghanistan just a few short weeks ago to visit with U.S. and Afghan leaders and to hear what was on the minds of our soldiers. And I was extremely impressed with the courage and dedication of our soldiers, as well as the quality and commitment of our leaders. The ongoing transition is putting trained and equipped Afghan security forces in the lead as we continue to defeat the enemy and deny safe haven to those who mean us harm. We will not allow desperate tactics such as suicide bombers or insider threat to derail our efforts, because we have dedicated young men and women to ensure that simply will not happen. Equally important are the missions the Army responded to at home in support of our civil authorities, such as disaster relief in the wake of Hurricane Isaac and fighting wildfires across the western United States. In addition, this year the Army sent 13 soldier athletes, the most ever, to compete in the 2012 London Olympics. Staff Sergeant Vincent Hancock earned his second Olympic gold medal in skeet shooting, and Army spouse Jamie Gray brought home Olympic gold in marksmanship. I'm glad I'm not married to her, by the way. We also celebrated the performance of 20 military veterans on the U.S. Paralympic team who competed in the 2012 London Games. In uniform and out of uniform, in combat or closer to home, our soldiers and veterans remain the strength of our Army. It is soldiers like Specialist Kevin Holt, a medic with the 25th Infantry Division in Hawaii, who epitomize the character and quality of our soldiers and veterans today. Specialist Holt returned last fall from his first deployment in Iraq. This past June, he took leave to spend time with his family in Florida. Out on the golf course, he and his dad heard a woman screaming and saw a couple engaged in a heated argument that quickly turned violent. Specialist Holt rushed to the scene where he discovered the woman had been stabbed. He forced the attacker off and providing life-saving medical assistance until emergency services arrived. The city police chief declared that if it weren't for Specialist Holt's heroic and selfless act of bravery, this woman would have been a victim of murder. This past Friday, Specialist Holt was awarded the Soldier's Medal for his courageous act of heroism. Soldiers like Specialist Holt embody the values that make us the best Army in the world and make our American society stronger merely by their presence. As we reflect upon the strength, courage, and sacrifice of our soldiers, it is important to recognize what has changed and what has remained constant over the last 11 years of war. The strategic environment in which we operate is constantly evolving. Indeed, the character of conflict itself is changing, even as the nature of warfare remains the same. Across the globe, the balance of two superpowers has been replaced by an increasingly crowded international stage. Regional powers exert influence locally, often unconstrained by superpower influence. Strong social movements have successfully challenged long-entrenched regimes. Loosely affiliated groups, united often only by ideology, operate in ungoverned spaces, on land and in cyberspace. Technological advances have revolutionized the way people and governments interact. A wide variety of non-state actors can combine primitive tactics with advanced weapons to create instability in free societies and failing states. These actors do not replace the more conventional threats posed by nations, such as North Korea, but they require the military to maintain a much broader range of capabilities to respond. And yet the fundamental nature of war remains the same. War remains a struggle to influence key terrain, populations, and governance. Preventing conflict is better than reacting to it. And to prevent it, you must understand its causes. But understanding, in a lot of ways, can only be gained through presence. Before I reflect on what the future holds, let me share with you what I believe the enduring missions the United States Army provides to the nation. First, decisive defeat of any enemy on land remains our top priority. The Army represents one of America's most credible deterrents against future hostility. We prevent miscalculations from erupting into war, and we defeat an adversary when it does. No other nation can match the U.S. Army's ability to rapidly deploy large number of troops over extended distances, sustain them, and deliver precise, discriminate results. We must be prepared to take decisive action ourselves if necessary, but we must also set the conditions for our allies and partners to do so as well. In an increasingly complex and interconnected world, the Army also plays a critical role in shaping the strategic environment. Our force has honed its tremendous skills not only in battle, but also quelling civil unrest, countering terror, demilitarizing former combat zones, protecting vulnerable populations, and providing disaster relief. These contributions have endured through Task Force Sinai observer missions since 1982 and peace support operations in Kosovo since 1998. They include building partners through standing organizations such as Joint Task Force Bravo in Central America since 1984 and Combined Joint Task Force Horn of Africa since 2002. Finally, the Army is an indispensable provider to the Joint Force. Army commanders lead joint task forces, plan operations, and command and control units across the range of military operation. Army units build and operate the networks, connecting our own units, the joint community, the interagency and multinational partners on austere battlefields. Soldiers deliver food, fuel, ammunition, and medical support necessary to sustain joint operations, from combat to humanitarian assistance. The Army collects and analyzes the intelligence that informs our actions and measures our progress. It delivers vital supplies to communities at home and abroad impacted by natural disasters. And finally, the Army provides 75% of the operators in U.S. Special Operations Command, who are essential to our national counterterrorism and security force assistant operations. In January of 1958, President Eisenhower remarked upon the growing strength and experience of America's military in his 6th State of the Union address. He stated, "Gratifying though this rate of progress is, we must still do more. Our real problem is not our strength today. It is rather the vital necessity of action today to ensure our strength tomorrow." Today, we face many of these same challenges. We must build an Army of the future. We must develop adaptive leaders and employ regionally responsive, mission-tailored strategic land power forces to ensure our strength for tomorrow. Our current and future leaders must deal with an increasingly complex environment. Globalization was once expected to lead to peace through greater understanding, as the boundaries between individuals and societies were broken down by technological advances in communications, access to the internet, and a pervasive global media. What we have seen in many cases is just the opposite. These changes have often sharpened differences, exposed groups to shortcomings in their own society, and facilitated dangerous linkages outside the control of weak and ineffective governments. Our ability to respond effectively to these complex new dynamics hinges on the quality of our soldiers and leaders' mental agility and strategic vision. As we face an uncertain future and declining operational demand, we must develop leaders with the breadth and depth of experience necessary to meet tomorrow's demands. First, this requires embedding mission command in our professional culture. We must empower soldiers, squads, and commanders at every level so they may rapidly respond to the demands of the environment in which they operate. This includes fostering a climate in which shared understanding, mutual trust, and a common sense of purpose are the standard every single day. Second, our leaders must be the stewards of the Army profession. Each one of us is responsible for maintaining the highest standards of character, competence, and resiliency in ourselves, our families, and our soldiers. Mentorship of soldiers is critical so that leaders help soldiers grow from their experiences and deal with the periods of personal adversity within an environment of mutual trust. Our Ready and Resilient campaign will integrate and expand the Army's efforts to enhance the performance of our soldiers, civilians, and their families across the physical, emotional, spiritual, family, and social dimensions of strength. Finally, we must evolve our leader development and talent management from the team and squad level all the way to the very top. We are refining professional military education from the Warrior Leaders course to the Army War College. The latter, which I see that should be the premier institution for strategic land power. We are expanding leaders' opportunities and encouraging broadening assignments in academia, interagency, and multinational settings to prepare them for the complex and uncertain global environment. And we are managing talent in a manner that leverages our great diversity to select the right soldier for the right assignment at the right time. If we don't match our headwear to our hardware, we will have technologically advanced formations without the benefit of adaptive and innovative leadership. The successful conclusion of operations in Iraq and our ongoing transition in Afghanistan, as well as the significant fiscal challenges this country faces, makes it essential that our Army reorients itself toward a broader array of missions and regions across the globe. Our ability to deliver truly strategic land power, however, requires an improved understanding of the convergence of human, cyber, and geographic terrain in which we will operate. Today's global connectivity and its impact on the changing operational environment reinforce the lasting strategic results can only be achieved by effectively influencing people. Success depends much on understanding the social and political fabric of the surroundings as it does on the ability to physically dominate them. We must take full advantage of the growth and development of new technologies to educate and train the force for operations on land as well as in cyberspace. Over the last 11 years of war, our Army has become a world leader in basic scientific research and applied technology in areas such as armaments, life-saving medical advances, nanotechnology, robotics, fuel-efficient initiatives, and simulation. Our efforts to develop the force must keep pace with this technology. This requires continued investment in our institutional Army to take full advantage of these technological advances in learning. Creation of new centers of excellence, such as the Army Cyber Center at West Point, will ensure we adapt to new information realities so that we do not cede the advantage to future enemies. Throughout this period of great change, the Army stands ready to fight and win our nation's wars. However, we must be capable of doing much more to prevent conflict and shape the environment. Therefore, we must organize and employ our forces to be more agile and responsive to the needs of our combatant commanders. In the future, our forces must be tailored to local requirements, rapidly deployable at the lower echelons, and scalable from squad to corps level. As we move towards the future, our Army begins from a position of strength. We have the most experienced and combat-ready force in our Army history and are considered by all the world's greatest land power, who employs the most effective discriminant weapon on the battlefield, the American soldier. We must approach operational tasks by organizing our missions around highly trained squads and platoons that are the foundation for our company, battalion, or brigade combat teams, organized for specific mission sets and regional conditions. No other service can provide the mix of forces from heavy to medium to light, tailored to meet mission requirements. None can match the synergy that results from the close integration of our special purpose and conventional forces, particularly in the complex human dimension of modern conflict. And none can match the breadth and depth of experience provided by a balanced mix of active National Guard and U.S. Army Reserve forces. We will leverage these strengths through the regional alignment of forces, providing the combatant commanders full access to the range of capabilities resident in our Army today. We are building this effort on a great foundation. Army forces always provide a wide range of medical, intelligence, logistical, and single support to the combatant commands through forces both forward deployed and based here in the United States. By aligning unit headquarters and rotational units to combatant commands and tailoring our combat training centers and exercises to plan for their greatest contingencies, units will gain invaluable expertise and cultural awareness and be prepared to meet the regional requirements more rapidly and effectively than ever before. Efforts are underway in U.S. Pacific Command, Africa Command, and European Command to designate forces, align headquarters, and increase integration with allies and multinational forces such as the NATO Response Force. To truly become a force capable of engaging around the world also requires a modernization strategy that is centered on our soldiers in the squad. We must empower them with unmatched lethality, protection, and situational awareness to achieve tactical dominance. It entails an overarching network architecture that connects all echelons from squad to joint task force to ensure leaders have the right information at the right time to make the best possible decisions, therefore enabling mission command. It includes network-ready, combat and tactical wheeled vehicles designed to maneuver our formations with increased lethality and mobility while optimizing survivability. In total, our modernization efforts will prepare the entire force for the complex and uncertain battlefield by putting squads with precise information and overmatched capability at the decisive time and place to achieve dominance of the operational environment. At the same time, we must preserve the ability to reassemble our forces rapidly, building the mass necessary to decisively defeat a determined enemy. In pursuing these goals, we ensure that we remain an Army capable of many missions, at many speeds, under many conditions. Our all-volunteer Army has been engaged in continuous combat for 11 years. The undeniable fact remains that we continue to have young men and women who raise their right hand and swear an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States. They do it voluntarily, and they are fighting to stay in. In 2012, we had the best recruiting year in terms of quality as far back as I can remember. We have already signed 30,000 soldiers for this year. Re-enlistment is competitive and focused on quality. We have and will continue to have a great Army, one recognized by its great people, epitomized by the men and women who continue to serve. So I'd like to end by talking about another one of our remarkable soldiers. 25-year-old Staff Sergeant Travis Mills is from Vassar, Michigan. This past February deployed with Bravo Troop, 4th Battalion, 73rd Cavalry Squadron, 82nd Airborne Division out of Fort Bragg. This was his third deployment in 6 years to Afghanistan with the 82nd. Of course, he says that's the only division in the United States Army. As an infantryman, his mission was to train and mentor soldiers in the Afghan National Army. On April 10th, 2 months into the deployment, his world changed forever. While on patrol, an IED tore through his 6'3", 250-pound frame, and he sustained life-threatening injuries. 1 week later, he arrived at Walter Reed National Medical Center. Remarkably, after just a few weeks, he was in outpatient care working on his rehabilitation. Staff Sergeant Mills' will to survive and determination to recover from his wounds intensified every day with his wife Kelsey and one-year-old daughter Chloe at his side. Websites documenting his recovery have become a viral phenomenon. Americans everywhere are inspired and empowered by this young Staff Sergeant. He is here today with his lovely wife, and I'd like you both to stand, please. What I didn't say is that Staff Sergeant Mills is one of only 5 quadruple amputees in the military to ever survive the severity of losing 4 limbs. But even that challenge has done nothing to slow him down. He does physical and occupational therapy for almost 9 hours a day. And his trainers tell us he is always the last one to leave the building. 6 weeks after his injury, he took his first steps. And he has been relearning to walk on his new legs alongside his new walking baby daughter, 1-year-old Chloe. We're incredibly proud of this great team, his perseverance and his strength. That's what our Army is all about. So when you're feeling sorry for yourself, I want you to think about Staff Sergeant Mills. Kelsey is a testament to the powerful support and unconditional love our families provide through the toughest of days. She's a great representative of the 1.4 million family members that stand beside our soldiers every day. Our families are the true unsung heroes who wait patiently at home, all the while hoping their loved ones will safely return. Their love and unwavering support are directly linked to the strength of our nation. Thank you, Staff Sergeant Mills and Case, for your service and sacrifice to the nation. As General Creighton Abrams, the 26th Army Chief of Staff, said, "Soldiers do not make up the Army, soldiers are the Army. Soldiers like you are the heart and soul of America's Army." Though we are drawing down our forces engaged in active combat overseas, I'm committed to ensuring that our soldiers, veterans, and families get the best care possible so that together we may heal the visible and invisible wounds of war. We celebrate all that with you and soldiers everywhere who have accomplished and sacrificed to help keep our country free. Let me close with this. There are some who have interpreted our new national strategy as questioning the relevance of land forces. There are others who would wish away a decade's worth of hard-won sacrifice and expertise with false assumptions about the future. To them I say, our Army was created 237 years ago to defend this great nation and to secure the interests of the United States abroad. That imperative has not changed. As I've watched the strategic environment evolve over nearly 4 decades in uniform, I have seen many of the characteristics of conflict change. Technology has advanced, new threats have emerged, and connections between people have increased exponentially. But through it all, the nature of conflict has remained constant. From countering terrorism to irregular warfare, from stability operations to humanitarian disasters. When people are in trouble, the United States responds. It is most frequently the U.S. Army soldier that arrives on their doorstep. Why? Because preventing conflict demands presence. Shaping the environment demands presence. Restoring the peace demands presence. And more often than not, that presence proudly wears the uniform of an American soldier. Is our families, and that's what makes this Army strong. Thank you very much, and God bless America.
Chief, this really goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. The members of the Association of the United States Army and the supporters of the United States Army support you 1,000% with those last words. Before we conclude, I want to just urge all of you to get around, see the exhibits, go to the military forums today and tomorrow. Enjoy each other's company tonight at many of the receptions which will take place from units, recognizing units in which you served. Consult your programs or your apps on your iPhones for the location and times of various events. All of these events are for all of you. Active duty, Army Guard, Army Reserve, civilians, government civilians, contractors, people from other countries. Thanks a lot for being here. Chief, we're proud of you, the Secretariat, and we're proud of the leadership of the United States Army. Thank you to all of you. Thanks a lot, folks.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our luncheon. Please remain in your seats until the head table has cleared the room.